So guys, there is a growing global concern about pesticide resistance in the agricultural space, just as we have it in the medical space, whereby the use of some antibiotics are no longer effective in the treatment of some diseases. Now, what we are having in the agricultural space is that uh, pesticide, pests are building resistant to some pesticide, and which is causing a whole lot of problem for farmers and is beginning to challenge the food security at the global stage. On today's episode, we are going to be looking at pesticide resistance together. What actually is pesticide resistance? What are the driving factors of pesticide resistance? And what are the best ways by which farmers can tackle this problem to ensure more sustainability and productivity? And also, what are the impact of uh, pesticide resistance on farmers' productivity? So to start with, let us understand the concept of pesticide resistance. So pesticide resistance is when pests, like insect pests, things that destroy crop on the farm, when they build resistance to the chemicals we spray on them to control them. Now, this happens, this usually happens when there are so many factors responsible for it. But the leading factor is when you continuously use a particular chemical over time, a particular chemical with a particular active ingredient. Now, just like you want to fight malaria, there are so many anti-malaria drugs with different composition. So when you want to fight a particular pest and you are using a particular chemical with a particular active ingredient over time, there's tendency that the pest on your maize farm, for example, will build resistance to this chemical over time. And what you will have in that sense is that maybe after the fifth year or after the sixth year, you will spray those chemicals, you will spray them, spray them, spray them, but you will not be seeing the effectiveness because that chemical has been registered in the DNA and in the body system of those are pests, and they are no longer being affected. They are no longer being affected or killed by the chemical. That is number one. The number two causes, the number two cause of pesticide resistance in farming is the use of low dosage. When you are using below the dose. Now, for example, if you are supposed to use 50 ml to dilute 10 liters of water, for example, and you are using 20 ml to dilute 10 liters of water, definitely the solution you are having will be weaker. And when you spray that, that solution will not be enough. The concentration of the solution will not be enough to kill those pests. Instead, what will happen is that that chemical will be registered. They will note it, their DNA will note that chemical, and it will be passed through down to generation. And it will help them to build resistance against that chemical. So in the future, when you come back, even with adequate concentration, when you come back with that chemical and you spray on your farm, they will not be as effective because those insects are already carrying particle from that chemical in their body system. They already register it in their DNA so that it will not be effective over time. And lastly, but not the least, about the causes of the driving causes of pesticide resistance in agriculture is that whenever farmers use chemical indiscriminately, when you use chemicals indiscriminately, chemicals that are supposed to be sprayed at the adult stage of the insect, you carry those chemicals and you spray it at the developmental stage of that insect. That is why it is not immediately you see pests on your farm, you start carrying chemical and spray. There are some chemicals that are meant to be sprayed at the pupa stage. There are some chemicals that are meant to be sprayed at the larva stage of the insect. Whereas there are also some chemicals that are meant to be sprayed only at the maturity stage of the insect, when the insects are fully blown insect. Now, when you carry those chemicals and you spray at the egg stage or at the pupa stage, you'll be doing yourself more danger, more harm than good. Because what will be the result of that is that they will be building resistance against it and you will not be seeing the effectiveness of this. Now, the economic importance of this problem, why this problem is a driving factor is a serious one, is that it tends to increase the productivity, it tends to increase the cost of production among farmers. Because whenever farmers notice that they spray chemical and they are not, the effectiveness is not that, what they normally do is that they will spray more and spray more and spray more to achieve that effectiveness. And that in turn will hamper their productivity cost. It will increase their productivity cost directly. Another impact of pesticide resistance is that it leads to environmental degradation because of the inefficient of these chemicals, the chemicals not being as effective as they are supposed to be. Farmers tends to use more quality, and which leads to chemical builds up in our environment, in our water, in our air, and in the soil, which is not good for all of us. And lastly, but not the least, is that farmers themselves are being exposed to chemical, because whenever you spray chemical, you are also being you are subjecting yourself to some kind of exposure to chemical, which is not good for the farmer's health. And lastly but not the least, it also build up in the chemical contained in our food. When you use chemicals too much, it's it build up in the food we are eating. So how do we control chemical pesticide resistance? The number one thing is to practice integrated pest management. It is not enough to rely only on chemical control. And it has been shown that integrated pest management, which is a system of combining different way of controlling insect pests on your farm. You combine biological method, you combine physical method, you combine chemical methods together, and you also combine cultural method together, has been shown to be more environmental friendly, costs saving, and even more effective than relying only on chemical or only on biological method. And lastly but not the least, on how we can help ourselves to reduce the impact or the prevalence of pesticide resistance is to always read label, chemical label, when we want to use pesticide on our farm. And lastly but not the least, let us avoid the overuse of a particular active ingredient. It leads to pesticide resistance. With this, I've come to the end of today's topic, and I hope you've gotten value one way or the other. In case you are watching for the first time, my name is Lawa Olusola Lawa. I'm an agri consultant. I'm a farmer by training, by practice, and by education. And this channel is dedicated to promote sustainable and profitable agriculture. So if this is your first time of watching this channel and this content resonates with what you have interest in, kindly give it a like, share with your friends, and click on subscribe button to have access to more videos and more interesting content like this. Thank you for your time, and see you on the next one. Sheshe.